All right, you guys, I am so excited to welcome Regina to the show. So you probably already know Regina as the go-to brow lady. That's what I always always think of her as. And now that I'm sitting here looking at you on the computer screen, the first thing I noticed was perfect brows. So
Had to make sure I had them on.
Regina, thanks for being on the show today. And I'm excited to learn more about your story and learn how you became known for brows in the industry. You know, you started out, I know that you started out doing brows practicing, and now you're in the education space and really teaching estheticians who want to niche down into brows, which is an amazing niche. Something that I think, you know, I love to teach on. That is like, find your niche, find your area of expertise, the more specialized you go. And you really have taken that and created an entire business off of that.
I have, yep.
So tell us about, let's start just getting your background. Can you tell us kind of how you got into the beauty industry in the first place? Did you always know that you were going to be the brow lady?
No, I actually always say brows found me. I really had no idea. I'd always liked beauty, hair, nails, makeup, but I was always pushed to go to college. Like beauty school was like, beauty school's for dropouts. You're too smart for beauty schools. So it just never crossed my mind. After spending some time in college and it started to get real, I realized this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to sit in a cubicle. I like beauty. So I ended up, there happened to be a class for aesthetics that started the next week, and I literally ditched out college registration and started beauty school the next week. So I just did what was expected. Makeup was what kind of brought me to it, but this was back in the early 90s. So makeup, and even brows for that matter, really weren't like what it is now. There wasn't bridal makeup, and there wasn't a whole lot of, even makeup counters weren't like the way that it is now. Like once I got my license, I realized, what am I going to do? And I'm in a small town. So I'm like, I can't do makeup. Now what? So I just did aesthetics. I just did facials, waxing. I did it all. And about 2 years in, I realized I'm pretty good at eyebrows, because people would come in, all my business would be eyebrows, and my clients would come in and say things like, oh my God, you won't believe, somebody stopped me on the street because they want to know, who does your eyebrows? Somebody stopped me in the grocery store. This was well before social media. I had advertising in the yellow book. Like, you literally had to stop people on the street when you liked their hair or their face or whatever was going on. So I realized, well, I guess brows are kind of my thing. I must be pretty good at it. So I kind of just ran with it, and my Yellow Pages ad said specialize in eyebrows, because I was really more of a marketing ploy at that time. I said, why not? I must be good at it. And then it kind of just took off from there. So I've been specializing for about 23 years. It's been about 90% of my business since about that time. And about 3 years ago, I cut everything out and now do only eyebrows.
Wow. So you've probably seen some changes in the trends in brows, because I know like sometimes they're thicker, sometimes they're thinner. Do you follow those trends, or do you look at the shape of the individual's face and really match the brows?
I've always just been more into classic brows. I've never followed trends. I've always just been more like, don't worry about trends. I was doing this in the 90s when everybody wanted Pamela Anderson eyebrows. And I'm like, no, you don't, because they're terrible. They're like, they're terrible. No, you don't. But that was what was big back then in the 90s. And I always just kind of kept things natural, even when that wasn't the trend, which is funny because now it's really what I'm known for is natural brows. Like, I've really just carried it through, 23 years later to natural brows. So now I'm not big on trends. I see them and I kind of laugh, actually.
When I think of the 90s, I think of Drew Barrymore's brows, and they were like upside down U's.
Exactly. They were like just a skinny little brows like that. So yeah. So no, I've never followed trends. I've always just been natural.
When we were talking earlier, you had mentioned, and I thought this was a really powerful part of your story. So you became known as the brow lady, and then you went through a big struggle in your life and basically reinvented yourself. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. I had a really successful business in my town, and I'm in a relatively small town in Southern California. But brows was already my thing. I was already pretty successful doing it. And in 2005, I had my son, and I was a single mom, had my son in a really successful business. but I found myself battling depression, postpartum, just really not focusing on work so much. Just really, I was just pulled in all directions, and my business suffered. So I guess you can almost say I kind of lost it, because for about a year, I didn't really focus on it. Not mention that I was kind of like, Debbie Downer. I was, when your clients ask you, oh, so how are you? How's the baby? Well, my clients are really good clients. I may have got a little personal. So I think I kind of got, I became like, oh God, I don't want to go see her. I already know. I already know what we're going to talk about. Things, how business isn't the same, because that's what they ask. How's business? And I would just, it was always negative, because it was. And I was negative. I mean, I was just going through a lot, and my business reflected that. So I actually considered cashing out and just getting another more reliable career.
Isn't it interesting how like what's going on internally reflects outwardly? Like that's something that, I've been learning more about. My coach talks about it all the time, is like your inner state is reflected in your business. And
Yep.
so the real work is on personal development and being the type of person that runs a successful business. And when you're like, no judgment or no anything in your direction, because I'm actually in the middle of, having this, trying to balance having a baby and run a business. And it's really challenging. And I can't even imagine doing it as a single mother. It's, but going through that and now reflecting on you, I'm sure that it's really shaped who you are and really made you grow as an individual going through that.
It really shows you how much of your mindset really plays a role in your business. And it's really hard when you're struggling in your business, like I think most people are in the beginning. I mean, it's natural. You come in with nothing, and you got to make something out of nothing. And I think it can be really discouraging. And therefore, our minds are always like, oh, work sucks, whatever. Like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I had this was now like in 2008, because then the economy had crashed. Like it was a combination of like, bam, bam, bam. And when I made the decision, like, this is what I want to do, I don't want to do anything else. I literally made the decision, out loud, I said, I am not going to be negative anymore. And even though my inside was like, work is terrible, I really want to tell you what I feel, I said, there's no more room for that. I'm just going to, if it's lying, I'm going to lie, because I need to get myself back into I need to get my mojo back. Mm-hmm. So when people would say, oh, how's biz? How's the baby? How's everything going on? I would just say, it's good. It's fine. And in the inside, I'm like, not yet, not yet. But that was the catalyst to kind of getting myself back in my groove. And it was a literal deliberate decision on my part to do that, even though I didn't feel it. It was just something I said, I have to do this.
And I'm sure you did feel it after a period of time. I mean, when I get in that space, like last night, for example, I got about 3 hours of sleep. And I've been relatively open with people on the podcast and on social media that my baby has trouble sleeping. We've tried so many different things. And it is a challenge to be sleep deprived, when you're trying to run a business. But when you're switching, like you said, you made that conscious choice, it's good. For me, I'm having to tell myself, like, there's always someone who has it worse than you. And then I try and focus on, like, look at all the positive. I mean, I'm sitting here, if you guys could see my view right now, I'm in Lani Kai. I have the most amazing view. There's like so many positive things that are going on. I'm sure your son is a joy. And so to like have, even though it's stressful and hard, you have that positivity in your life.
Oh yeah. No, it was really just more of a mindset in the business sense, because I knew that something had to change. Mm-hmm. And it did. It, like I said, it really was the catalyst to just really starting to, you could feel the positivity. I mean, in my little work studio, it was and then that was just kind of how it started. And then started rebuilding my brand up at that point. And at that point now we had social media. So that took it to a whole nother level. But it really was, it started with, I did at one point think I can't do this. I needed to leave. It's not reliable. I
So
need a new career.
when you were rebuilding your business, is that when you switched into education, or were you rebuilding your business as a brow expert?
That's interesting. That was actually, no, I was still rebuilding my business just to pay my bills. I was just trying to get still people in my door. And I started posting pictures on social media because I was like, well, I mean, and at that point, not even a whole lot of people were doing it, but you could see that that's where the trend was going. So I'm like, why not? I mean, I've got people here. I mean, I do pretty good work, I thought. So let me start taking pictures, posting pictures. So, I did start developing a new, my brand a little bit more and different in my town. Again, I've always been there, but I've definitely curated more of a brand and a style that people necessarily weren't aware of because they couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So now they were able to see like, oh, that's what I want. Or like, oh, well, I want what that girl does. No, but I want what this girl does. I mean, you're really able to really like hair. I mean, you're really able to go like, oh, I like how she does. Sorry. I like how she does, brows and that style. So I was really able to just kind of hone in on my actual style a little bit. And then what got me into the education was then I started, discovering these Facebook groups. I was like, oh, wow, an aesthetic Facebook group. This is cool. Mm-hmm. So I started with one. And, next thing you know, I'll be on to like 4 of them or whatnot. And, everybody shares things, posting pictures of brows. And next thing you know, people were like kind of tagging me on brow stuff because they were like, oh, Regina's great at brows. She'll tell you how to handle that or whatever. So I started developing kind of a reputation in these groups where it was like, wow, these are my peers.
That's how I found you, was in my group.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, wow, this is really cool. Like, this isn't even about just like getting somebody in my chair, but I've got these people who are in like, Washington or like Oregon, New York, like wherever, who are like, oh my gosh, I love it. Could you, and they're messaging me also like, how would you handle this? Like, what do you do? And then people started asking me, do you train? And I'm like, no, I never really thought about it. And then there were a couple people and, that I had kind of made Facebook friends with, and, Facebook world, you're friends with people who you never really even met, who were just like, you know what, you should really do more like training, maybe even get your own like brow group or something. And I said, never even thought of it, but okay. It was just I just said yes. I'm like, all right. I didn't really even think about it much. I literally woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning one morning and said, all right, I'm opening up a Facebook group and dedicated to eyebrows. And it's kind of how I started.
So have you ever been tempted to step into the world of microblading? I know that's been like a big trend in the past couple of years, and I think it's a really cool treatment.
Yeah, I'm so torn on microblading. Well, one, because my passion is natural brows, and it seems like a no-brainer that it would be just a natural segue for me. I know a lot of people, natural brow artists, have made a beautiful transition into microblading. I just don't know if that's my passion. I'm not saying that I won't maybe consider it at some point, but I really still feel like natural brows, especially with the growth of microblading, that natural brows is still such a exclusive sort of thing that I think it almost could be the potential to be forgotten at this point, because everybody's going to want microblading, or microblading will be microblade. And it's like, natural brows are beautiful. Not everybody's idea of perfection is different. So let's focus on our natural brows. And that's what I'm kind of about, is I'm like, everybody's brows are beautiful. They don't have to be perfect. Imperfect brows are beautiful because they're your imperfect brows. So let's make those shine. Mm-hmm. And then, if that's not your gig and you're like, no, I want perfection, well, then I guess you'll find yourself a microblader. But I really just I've thought about it and said, I haven't ruled it out, but that's kind of where my heart is right now. I'm like, you know what? I really like natural brows for that reason. Like, I'm like, who's to say that your brows have to be somebody's idea of perfect? Your brows are perfect.
Yeah.
I'll help you get that.
I like that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about so you started your Facebook group. Now are you offering training now? Courses?
So I have through the years, it's kind of evolved a little bit. This is just another interesting little tale. So everything has just been kind of raw and organic on my end. Like, I couldn't have planned any of this. It was just kind of, okay, next. So as I had my Facebook group, people were like, oh, do you have training or videos? Again, this was like back, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when even videos and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, everything was just new. So at that time, now you go on YouTube and everybody's got, training videos and whatnot. But back in the beginning, it was people, it was a little more difficult to find. So I kind of opened up the door for people to be like, I need to learn more. So people started asking me, where can I learn more? Do you do videos? Do you know anybody who does any training? So then I started, recording some videos and had a little training group, of people who paid to watch the videos. And then they, we had, some mentoring at that time is what I called it. And then it kind of evolved into group training where I did it in person. And then what happened is I realized that what I was doing was something more. I realized I wanted to be more than a watch and learn. And for me, brows had always been natural. I never took a course. I never took a class. Even to this day, I have never taken a brow class at all. I don't even know how other people have brow classes. I do a brow class. I can't tell you or compare it to anybody else's because I've never been to one. Everything I've done has just been what I've developed. So when I realized I was teaching people things, I wanted it to be more than just a watch and learn, because I realized I was doing something more than that. But what? I couldn't really tell you because it wasn't anything that I was like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So back in 2016, I actually kind of took a year off of my actual training because I said, I'm going to look, what do I do? I wanted to be able to explain to people, don't just watch what I do and do it. I want to tell you why you're doing it. I want to tell you how you're doing it. I want you to be able to make those decisions yourself, to know where and how.
So you were really fine-tuning your system.
Yes, exactly. And it was something that I didn't even know, because like I said, I didn't really have a developed system at the time because I was just doing it. But I was doing something.
One thing that I want to point out here, and I want you to let me know if you agree with this or not, but what I'm hearing is you were really just following your intuition and saying yes.
Yes.
So a lot of times I think that, you're like, I don't know how I got here. I didn't plan anything. But what you did do is you said yes, and you moved past whatever fear you were having about that. I think that a lot of people have a dream or have something that they're good at, whether it's brows, whether it's microblading, whether it's waxing or facials or whatever, but they feel like they have to be in this box rather than saying yes. And I think you are a perfect example of what saying yes can do. And, people are afraid to niche down, and you're so niched down. I do natural brows. That's.
Yeah. Not do I just do brows, but natural brows. Yeah. I mean, I never even thought about it that way. I don't just, I shouldn't say that. I have since become a natural brow expert. That's kind of what because I've realized there's something specific to that, because brows are so vast now that I needed to make sure that I do natural brows. I'm a natural brow expert. And that's kind of where I feel really comfortable, especially when I started to I spent a whole year realizing everything that I did. I literally just analyzed every application of wax. And I'm like, why did I do that there and not here? Okay, why did I stop my brow here and not there? This is all things that I've kind of made a style about, to teach people, to be like, these are the things that I'm doing, because I realized, wow, I'm actually doing something very specific. In my mind, I wasn't going 1, 2, 3, okay, now do this, now do that. But I just naturally, intuitively knew this is how I want my brow to look. Mm-hmm. But I realized that there were very specific things I was looking for. And I was able to create a system based on those things, that now I'm able to not just have people watch and learn and teach that way, but to really give them a system so now they could make the same choices, because maybe it's not intuitive to them. Yeah, it does once you know how you're making your choices. But in the beginning, you might have to know okay, this is where I want my line because of this. And this is where I want my brow to start because of this. So I was able to actually put it into a system, which is now what I've created is called Design Brows Naturally. And that's my That's what my style, my course that I teach online and in person is called.
That's awesome. I love that story. And because it really does show, like, we all, one of the things that I teach is that every single person has something unique and special to offer. And you just have to figure out what that is and give that to your clients. Like, you went down in such a, so many estheticians, when they're starting out, they're like, well, I have to offer everything because I don't want to exclude anybody. But really, the more specialized that you get and the more that you can really stand out as that, like you said, your business took off when you had your Yellow Pages ad that said natural brow specialist,
Yeah, or specialized in brows. Yeah.
specialized in brows, not like, hey, I'm an esthetician who does makeup and does skin and does all of these different things, because that is what everybody does. But when you're looking for a particular service, you actually make yourself stand out so much more when you say you're the expert in that. And it doesn't
Right.
mean that you can't offer other things. It's just
Even, yeah, because even when I did offer the other services, I was, even those had kind of honed down a little bit. I'd only done brows and Brazilians for about, maybe the past 6 years. I'd cut out body waxing and facials long before that. But even when I was already specializing in brows and I did the other stuff, I never talked about it. Because for me, again, it was a conscious decision. How do I say I specialize in one thing, yet I say that there's 5 other things that I do?
mm-hmm.
Like, for me, it was like, no, if I'm going to specialize in something, even if I'm doing the other things, because I know for a lot of people, sometimes it's hard to, you can't cut everything out. I mean, you got to work. But if I really wanted to specialize, I didn't want anything else to get in the way of that. So yes, I was still doing Brazilians with my brow clients or whatnot, but I never claimed to specialize in Brazilians, even though I did a pretty good one. It wasn't important to me. That wasn't my focus. And I think that kind of helped hone that, my brow base, which I had already decided that was what I wanted to do. So it was no sweat off my back to not do anything else. But I think that helped in niching down, where even if I was doing the other things, I didn't talk about it, or I didn't advertise that I did all that. It was just kind of understood once you came to me for the one thing I did specialize in. And I kind of just kept it at that.
So let's talk about social media really quick, because you said that social media was something, we touched on it briefly. You said, oh, I just started posting pictures of what I was doing. What platforms were you using, and how have you used social media to build your business into what it is today? Because that was the beginning of social media, but now there's just so much more.
Yeah. Well, social media has really helped me, again, build the brand. And what it's also helped me do, which is really important, is triple my asking price. Because I've built my brand, it's allowed me to, based on demand, increase my first time client price, so that because everybody wanted to get in because of the brand and the photos and whatnot that I was posting, I could no longer accommodate my regulars if I kept having an influx of new people. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was very discerning about the clients that I wanted. I didn't want people who just wanted to come in once, because I wasn't that kind of a person. I was looking for somebody who was going to come every month. So by raising my first time client price, I call it my client qualifier. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to pay that price to get your brows done in my little old town, you're going to come back every month, because if you don't, your price is going to go back up. So
what is the price?
Right now it's $90 for a first time price to get in. And I only take 2 new clients a week.
Good for you. And so you're creating scarcity. You're creating exclusivity.
I guess so. Yeah. And so the thing with the before and after pictures is that's really allowed me to showcase the style that I do and kind of get that client that I want by selectively doing choosing the brows that I post. Like, I don't just post and go. I have another little, to me, it's so important. I have another little mini course on the side that I do, Brow Photos Made Easy, because it's so important to me that you have an actual strategy when using your brow photos, because that's what I've done. And I believe that's what's helped kind of create that demand, where I'm not just posting and going. I'm not just posting, oh, here's a great eyebrow I did. but I'm literally posting very specific photos that show very certain things, so that when that client who I'm looking for looks at that, they'll know that's what I want. I want somebody who's doing that, because look at what she just did, because I specifically have maybe done like a tutorial, or it wasn't just an after photo. It was a before and an after, where I'm literally explaining everything that I did to get to that point, where somebody who can look at that and go, oh my gosh, and this is what new clients will say, I had no idea that that much thought goes into waxing eyebrows. I said, my reply is, well, if you're just getting them waxed, it doesn't. But when you're getting them designed and really having somebody utilize, your natural eyebrow, there is more to it. And that's kind of what I've proved through my photos. So by the time you come
you've
in,
showed them the value. You've showed them what it means to just get waxed versus it's like fine art versus buying, a painting at Target or something.
Yeah. So, and I see people who, in our industry complain about, oh, God, this person's haggling my price, or she wants this or that. I think because I set it up in such a way that, this is what you're getting, that I show you the value before you ever even make your appointment. Mm-hmm. So if that's not valuable to you, you're never going to make the appointment. And that's okay. I've long ago told myself and everybody there, brows aren't for everybody, or at least not the kind of brows that I do. And I'm okay with that, because you know what? There's certain things that I wouldn't spend a certain amount of money on, and yet other people, that's important to them. So it was also just knowing who I was looking for. I am not the brow person for everybody, because I already know who my ideal client is. So they'll come, and the other ones, they won't. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. So let them go. They're okay. They're not your client. They're not my client. And social media has really allowed me to hone in on that. Again, I didn't even know that was it at the time. It just kind of, evolved into that. And then I realized what sorts of photos were working, what sorts of things people were responding to. And then I was like, oh, if I do more of that, this is the sort of things that people, are responding to when it comes to my business. So
now, do you feel, are you using Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? Like, what's working best for you and your business?
Facebook has always worked best, but I think that's just because I spend more time on it, because I have my Facebook group. Mm-hmm. It's just easy to always be on it. I do think that Instagram is good. I just don't have the time to dedicate to all of them. But I do think Instagram is great, because I think it's easier to find people with the hashtags. So I do just post and go. I say when I'm on Instagram, I post and go. Like I post my photo, put my hashtags, and then I walk away, because that's like a black hole. And I get into Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, an hour later, I'm like, I don't even know what I got on here for. I'm all searching hashtags and I find all these different people. I have to just post and go. But those are my two, Facebook and Instagram. Those, and you almost have to.
I think for our industry, those are the two big ones. But if you were talking about your ideal client and the kind of person that is going to spend $90 on brows likely has some sort of discretionary income. I'm sorry for the background noise. Can you hear that?
It's okay. It's like my phone ringing.
Yeah. Candid live interviews, you guys. So I usually say, or I like to say, that Facebook is for a little, I don't know if I want to use the word older, a more mature demographic. Everybody's on Facebook, where Instagram tends to be a little bit younger.
Yeah. I mean, I have you said something that most people, that most of my clients probably have a little more of a extra income. You'd actually be surprised that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, they have to have, of course, money to like maintain it, but I find it comes down more to priorities. I think we all have our priorities, and expendable income or not, there's certain things that are important to us that we make sure we can include in our upkeep. And I have found that for my clients specifically, now I'm kind of in a soccer mom town, you know, upper middle class or a soccer mom town. So they don't do a whole lot, like for the most part, like they're not like heavy makeup wearers and they're not like, you know, walked out of Instagram. They're real people and they're moms who don't spend a lot of time on themselves. And what they find is this 15 minutes a month that's on their face is actually the cheapest amount of money that they could spend for as little time spent to get the effect that lasts all month. It's on their face and they get to see it. So it's not even like it's, you know, it's so it's a different kind of, I don't know, I guess it's perspective. Like I wouldn't say my clients are like, you know, oh, they have all this expendable income, though some of them do. It's just their priorities. They have realized that there are certain things that are important to them. And this is one of the things that they need. And it's in the budget.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I feel like you are an extraordinary businesswoman that doesn't necessarily identify as an extraordinary businesswoman.
I have been told I'm too humble. I don't know. I'm like, oh no, I just do my thing.
Yeah, but you're really listening to, you are a great businesswoman because you've been able to see the trends and build a business and take all of these things that you're doing intuitively and actually say, oh yeah, I'm going to raise my prices. I'm going to, you know, start posting on social media because why not? You know, all of these things that tend to bring up some fear in us and tend to bring up fear in new estheticians who are starting their businesses, you just go for it. So I think that that is a great role model for our industry, is you just stepping in, even if you are scared, just doing it. Just
right. And you had mentioned, you know, that I'm obviously saying yes to a lot of things. And I did eventually say yes to a lot of things that got me to this point. But I want to make sure that people know there were a lot of no's in there. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of like, no. I mean, I probably, and there was never any progress at the no's. At some point, something had to give. And it was either fail or take a leap. And that was when I would say yes. I sometimes wish I would have said yes earlier to a lot of those things, but nonetheless, I said it. And that's the important thing. But you know, there's a lot of no's and it's never too late to say yes.
Because I love that.
That's when you'll move forward. So it's never too late to say the yes.
So anything else that you want to add for this episode to be complete for you?
I don't know. We kind of touched on a lot of things that I think were kind of important to me as far as, just, you know, trying to get people to, you know their worth and not be afraid and to just go for it, really. I guess it's kind of, you know, now that I've said all the story out loud, I guess I could say that's what I did. And that's kind of, I guess, enlightening in a way too, to be able to speak out loud about, you know, my journey and to hear it, to be like, wow, yeah, there's, we all have our little obstacles, but if you keep moving and just keep moving forward, you can come out on the other side.
Well, it's a beautiful story, and I thank you so much for sharing. There's so many little pearls of wisdom in there, and we'll be sure to link up your Facebook group, your courses, all of that kind of stuff. So for those of you wanting to stay connected with Regina, then yeah, you will be able to. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.